a lot of people are out there saying, we've been distracted by the pronouns. I made jokes about it. We've been distracted by the pronoun wars and drag queens in the military and things like that. While Putin's been building up I need to make this point. It's not because the United States military is doing diversity training. It's not because European powers are more interested in their militaries being color coordinated and advertising their tolerance. It's not because the United States military wants to make sure transgender soldiers can come in and drag queens can do spectacles in the military bunkers. It's not just, it has nothing to do with the pronoun game in the United States. But what all of this signals is why this can happen. When the American military and the American political establishment and the European political establishment are more worried about apologizing for colonialism and for taking native lands and for making sure everybody has a pronoun they're comfortable with and for giving people safe spaces and for allowing drag queen story hour and all the like, what it suggests to the rest of the world is that we've lost our seriousness. Our focus has turned inward. And we can become a vain and petty people. We have become unserious. And Vladimir Putin is very serious. So when Vladimir Putin goes out of his way to tell everyone that he wants an end to NATO, and when Vladimir Putin assassinates opponents on NATO territory soil, and when Vladimir Putin jails and kills dissidents at home, and when Vladimir Putin invades Georgia, and we do nothing, and when Vladimir Putin takes over Crimea, and we do nothing, and when Vladimir Putin makes a proxy war in Syria against the West, and we do nothing, and while he's doing that, we're arguing over pronouns in the United States and putting men in women's sports and saying, if you disagree, you're a bigot. It's that the Russians know we are too distracted to stop them, and now is the time to make his play. Now, I know that's hard for some people, particularly on the left, to understand because you passionately believe that boys can become girls. Maureen Downey is an education columnist in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. The Georgia legislature is considering a ban on boys from girls' sports, biological boys from girls' sports. She handed over a column to a woman who says, what about her daughter? This hurts her daughter. Her daughter, of course, is a boy. But she believes the boy is now a girl. And so this discriminates against her girl. Don't you love the little subtle culture war twist on this? It hurts her girl. It doesn't hurt her girl. It hurts her son. But this is the push against the legislature in Georgia for doing something like this. Now, does this have a direct tie to Russia invading Ukraine? No, but it has a very big indirect tie to it. It shows that the United States is so distracted by a social madness sweeping society, particularly on the left, and the cultural institutions of the United States can be deployed against anyone who speaks up and calls them bigots and shuts them down and gets them thrown off social media. Vladimir Putin knows now's the time he can invade because we are so inwardly focused on a social madness sweeping Western elites who are now at war with truth. There's no way these people will ever be able to stand up to him. They won't be able. You can't even agree on pronouns. How are you going to agree on taking on Vladimir Putin? You can't even agree on the sexualization of kids is a bad thing. How are you going to take on Putin? You can't agree on the basic cultural norms of society. How then can you agree to stand up to someone like Vladimir Putin? You can't do it, and he knows it. Look at the Western allies now. The Western allies have been so fixated on their cultural campaigns and environmental justice, they're too indebted to Russia to be able to stop him. Germany can't agree to throw Russia out of the SWIFT banking system because the German banks have made too many loans to Russia while they've been funding diversity exercises at home. Yes, this is all tied together, whether you want to believe it or not. Vladimir Putin can look at the West and say the West has turned inward and divided itself. And you know what? Go back to Vladimir Putin in Germany, December 5th, 1989, when the East German mob showed up to burn down the KGB offices, and he was told Moscow is silent. You know what one of his lessons from that was? It's that populist movements in the West are destructive and destabilizing to their governments. And guess what Vladimir Putin has been doing? He's been funding populist movements in the West to destabilize. It will not be surprised when historians go into Russian archives 20 years from now and find the Russians have been throwing money at activists on the left and the right to stir up sentiment against each other. I mean, he did actually try to intervene in the American election in 2016, not as the Democrats claim to help Donald Trump, but to get us at each other's throats. If you will recall, one of the things that the Mueller investigation found is that the Russians were funding anti-Hillary Clinton protests and anti-Donald Trump protests, trying to get people to show up at the same time, at the same place for counter-protests. It worked. We've become inwardly focused on insanity, which meant there was nothing we could do to stop him from doing this. Now the question is, can we quickly get our wits about ourselves and try to repel this attack? Not with force, not with our soldiers, but are we willing to arm the Ukrainians? Are we willing to shut Putin out of the banking system? Are we willing to do the difficult things now so that we don't have to do the really hard things later? The President of the United States will shortly speak, and we'll find out.